Continuing area of controversy for me is the quantifiable impact that the use of the MTBE contaminated well water would have on our air quality, vegetation, wildlife, and believe it or not, on the good people of Burrillville. I sense something is a little amiss when spokesman Mr. Nyland said carbon filters would clean the water to 99% clean when this has never ever happened. And it is also unbelievable to me that no environmental impacts statement has been issued at this stage of the process. In lieu of not having one, I took the liberty to download OSB's impact statement. On page 110 of the Ocean State Power EIS, it addresses the cooling alternatives. And there were several water sources that were considered for potential sources, but let me draw your attention to the abandoned town wells in Lincoln, Rhode Island, where they had a well field of, I believe it was 3 wells that was investigated for that purpose. The old well field for Lincoln was abandoned in 1979 because of solvent contamination. The source of the contamination has apparently, and this is on that page, the source of contamination has apparently been eliminated, but the aquifer was still contaminated. And after a few statement of facts, the conclusion was, in quotes, the quality of the water would be unacceptable after pre-treatment if it wasn't for the contamination. Similarly, we have a contaminated well that's being proposed. Ocean State Power, the EIS on page 174 speaks to the requirement of alternative sites. There were 88 sites that were alternative sites that were chosen. 56 were eliminated immediately because of the process wouldn't have been practical. But of the remaining 32 sites, Buck Hill site, which was located in practically the same place that Invenergy is proposing their plant on Plat 135, Lot 2. And the Buck Hill, and the conclusion to the Buck Hill site wasn't chosen, obviously. And the reason for that was in that environmental impact statement, it said that the Buck Hill site is in a small rural area, even more sparsely settled than the area of the halfway house site. In addition, the site is adjacent to Pulaski State Park. The power plant would be inconsistent and incompatible with the recreational activities available at the park. But yet, we're proposing this site for the same thing that was denied in that statement by the Rhode Island Siting Board. Janet Coy, you and I have something in common. And it's not, well, maybe a little white here. But it was this Department of Environmental Management news release issued July 2nd, 2012. And if I could read this in part. It says the Department of Environmental Management has acquired 189 acres of land in Borough from the Boy Scouts of Rhode Island. The parcel is situated adjacent to over 7,000 acres of state preserved land. To the north of the property lies the 2,084-acre Buck Hill Management Area, and to the south is 5,203-acre George Washington Park Durfee Hill Management Area. The property also abuts Connecticut's Aquatic State Forest to the west. This property is considered among the highest priority conservation parcels in this state, and the high concentration of protected land in the area allows for increased habitat protection with minimal disturbance. The land features a myriad of uncommon species and habitats of both plants and animals. Plant species include locally common conifers such as white pine, eastern hemlock, and tree species such as the American larch, the black spruce, which are typically associated with northern forest habitats. Many rare plants have been identified on the property, including common oak fern, round-leaved oak orchids, one-flowered pyrola. I love those. And protecting these species help ensure that diverse habitats such as that of the Burrillville property are sustained. Preservation of the property strongly aligns with the state's comprehensive wildlife conservation strategy, which aims to identify and conserve those species in the greatest need for conservation while retaining a holistic view of all wildlife within the state. Croft Farm Brook runs through the property and forces an array of aquatic habitats that are not typically found in Rhode Island. The Croft Farm Brook area contains springs which are considered uncommon, isolated habitats, as well as several rare species identified by conservation strategies as species of greatest conservation need. need. DEM was so pleased to work in partnership with the Boy Scouts to protect this valuable habitat, said DEM Director Janet Coit. We agree. That's the first page of that document. There's a couple of pages to it, and it goes on and on and on. I realize that. This is a protected jewel in the state of Rhode Island. Please consider what you're doing. Do the right thing.